patria caro.
Dang it, there we are. Gosh. All right, what's going on, everybody? So we're kind of back. I just wanted to give people, do a quick video, give some people some updates on what's going on with us and everything else. But first and foremost, I want to thank Covenant Eyes for becoming an affiliate with us, right? We're an affiliate with Covenant Eyes, I should say. They're not affiliated with us. So we are now an official affiliation with Covenant Eyes, which is just awesome to me. There is a struggle out there right now, a nasty, dirty, stinky struggle with pornography that men are dealing with day in and day out. It's a plague on our society. It's an absolute plague on our culture. And it's something that me personally have had to deal with. Many men have to deal with this. So that being said, if you go to Covenant Eyes right now, you go to www.covenanteyes.com and type in promo code LOTP, Light of the Patriarchs, LOTP at www.covenanteyes.com. You'll get 30 days for free to try out their revolutionary software that not only does blocking, so it blocks stuff on your computers, on your iPhone, on your Android phone, it also has an accountability feature. So you can really fight this battle not by yourself, but with other people. Because blocking, it's just one thing, right? But being held accountable to other people is a whole nother ballgame. Having to be honest with people about what you're struggling with is an entirely new ball game. So that really puts you in that category of iron sharpens iron, right? And that's what we're called to do as men. We're called to be men who sharpen each other, right? We're called to challenge each other. Being in the military for a long time, we definitely had instances where that was the case. So please, if you're a man and you struggle with this, and even if you don't think you struggle with this, but you want to protect your family from inadvertently going on to something, right? With all the online learning that we have going on right now, with the COVID-19 stuff and kids not being in class and kids having to look at computers all day, every day. This is a great way to not only block them, but also monitor their screens while they're, on the computer. Not only does this have an accountability feature, but now they have a screenshot feature, which makes it, it makes it really difficult to want to look at anything when anything that pops up that is not going to be very savory for others' eyes are actually going to pop up in their inbox. So it's a really, really, really good way to try to knock yourself out of this. So again, go to type in promo code LOTP at www.covenanteyes.com to get a 30-day free trial of that software. Also, real quick here, I forgot to pull this up. It's pretty important as well. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, which would be 4 o'clock Eastern Time, I will have Brandon Clark, who works for Covenant Eyes. He's a devout Catholic, and he's in one of the guys that works for Covenant Eyes, goes around, speaks on Covenant Eyes, talks to people about what Covenant Eyes is all about, right? So he works for them. He's going to come on tomorrow and really talk with us about the benefits of using Covenant Eyes. And yes, we are going to have another porn talk show, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush anymore. There's a stigma on some things where you just don't feel like you can talk about them, right? Well, we're going to talk about these things because these are hard things to talk about, and this is how we fix ourselves, right? So going back to some of the other episodes where I've really talked about, we really need to start focusing on ourselves and our families by having that daily plan, by having that daily prayer, by trying to get closer to God first before we can go out and move the world, right? Well, this is one of those things. This is part of the spiritual life, is getting rid of the mortal sins that we deal with, right? That's the first step in the spiritual life, right? It seems, so easy for some. I just need to get rid of mortal sin. All right, I can stop doing that, right? But with so many people struggling with pornography, this is a mortal sin that keeps rearing its ugly head through our society constantly. over and over and over again. So we've really, really got to stop this. And so again, I'm going to have Brandon Clark on tomorrow. We'll have time for questions and answers at the end of it. But I think it's going to be really beneficial for the men to see this. So please consider watching that episode. So again, one last time, shameless plug here. Type in LOTP at www.covenanteyes.com for a 30-day free trial of the Covenant Eyes software. I guarantee you, I've been using Covenant Eyes now for about 6-7 years. I was using it when it first came out, and it has just been a huge blessing, not only for myself, but for my family as well. You know, I know my kids are protected. I know that these are that their minds and their brains are being protected, unlike mine was when I was younger. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But yeah, please keep that in mind. Also, we wanted to do some updates right to the show and to some other stuff. Really. Also, you know, actually, we're going to do this first. We're going to, a person that I've listened to for a long time, somebody who's really inspired me in my faith, has been Patrick Coffin, right? PatrickCoffinMedia.com. They're under attack. They've been banned on Facebook, I believe, and they've been completely banned off YouTube. They cannot do any more YouTube channels. He doesn't have a YouTube channel anymore, anything like that. Go to Patrick Coffin Media and check out his stuff. Check out his podcast, which is the Patrick Coffin Show, on any podcast platform. I love the guy. He's amazing at what he does. And I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I emailed him one time. I got a response back. You know what I mean? I was super excited about that. You know, when you meet these people that you really look up to. But check his stuff out. Give him some support. And the other one I want to give support to, who we have had on the show, is Jesse Romero, which hopefully I'm trying to get him back on the show again to talk about some other topics. But Jesse Romero's under fire right now too. He just announced recently that he's been completely banned off of YouTube as well. Check out his stuff at Virgin Most Powerful Radio, or you can look up his podcast, Jesus 911. They cover all kinds of topics: spiritual direction, spiritual attack, spiritual warfare. They're very big on those kinds of things. And check out our show that we did together back a couple months ago, where we talked about the Roman wedge and the Latin Mass, right? It was an awesome episode. It's probably one of the best ones that we've had so far. I just, you know, his personality, his dynamic is fantastic. So it's really good stuff. Really good stuff. All right. So now on to the updates, because I've already wasted too much of your time. If you're watching this later, if you're watching this now, I apologize. But if I've wasted so much time in the beginning, but hey, I wanted to give people some updates. I think it's fair to do so. And I think it's really important to let you guys know what's going on with the show, what's going on with me, what's going on with Dan. So Dan and I decided throughout Lent. Well, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack a little bit. Dan's life's really busy. Please pray for him. He's just got a lot of stuff on his plate right now with moving a new family, and he's working on some other stuff going on for his career and things like that. Me, on the other hand, I have had a lot of stuff going on. So I briefly mentioned some of this stuff in my show, but I really wanted to come out and be really brutally honest about some of this stuff, because I believe in transparency. I think it's okay to let people know what's going on in your life. You know, there's a certain prudence that you have to maintain, right? So I'm not going to go into everything, but there's definitely kind of a realm of letting people know what's going on. So as many of you know, I got out of active duty Air Force, and I left active duty back in January 18th, right? So that was a interesting transition, to say the least. It was a good one, right? But really, it stretched my wife and I and our family pretty thin. You know, we moved across the country. We moved to a new place, a new city that my wife's never been to, a city that I've never been to, right? To get closer to family, to get closer to some of my old friends and things like that. And thank God for that, because the family's been really supportive, of us being here and everything else. And we've also gotten a lot of support from friends. And so those of you who are watching this, who know who you are, who've really supported us in this move and helped us out along the way, like it's been a blessing. So this is one of those things. It was a leap of faith decision. It was a decision that I, with my wife, we really thought about it we've been thinking about it for years. But I really wanted to move on with my life. I just felt like it was just time. And sometimes you just know that. The military is a difficult place, and it's just getting more and more difficult to be even in the military as time goes on. So my wife and I decided it was just time to move on. So enough said about that. However, what happened is it required me to take another job with a military light company just for now. And so that's got me separated from my family geographically. And so right now I'm in a hotel room, so that's fantastic. So your prayers could be needed there, right? It's been a really trying time. Ash Wednesday was probably the most special Ash Wednesday I've ever had in my life. This Lent, honestly, was probably the worst Lent in a good way. That's what I mean, in a good way, right? So as Catholics, we like to look at things in the negative, right? Yeah, when it comes to Lent, we don't want our Lent to be nice and cushy and everything else. You want a difficult Lent. If you don't want a difficult Lent, right, we should want a difficult Lent. Last year, it was self-imposed. This year, it was just a lot of stuff happening at one time, a lot of stuff rapid succession happening at one time. None of it bad, just a lot of stuff, right? So my wife and I have really learned a lot about what's going on in life and everything else. So throughout Lent, I was in this hotel room. I've been here for a couple months now, not here permanently. I still get to see my family actually quite often. So this really isn't that bad of a gig. But in the beginning, it was really hard. Like for instance, I get to go home very soon. So, and I actually get to go home quite often. I think I already said that. Anywho, but this Lent was very trying, and not so much because the things that we were going through were difficult. We've done this before. Being in the military, I've been gone away from home for a long time. But Lent was trying for other reasons. It was very spiritually dry for me, whereas before Lent, I was like on fire, I decided that I needed to take a step away from the social media, from the Facebook, and even from this podcast. That's why we didn't do too many episodes during Lent and why we're just now picking it back up. So herein lies the update. Okay. So one of the updates that I really want to bring to the table is that, when it comes to providing for my family, that's got to come first. So I really had to, focus on the job I have right now, that's taking me away from the podcast and everything else, which is not a big deal, right? So we're kicking it back up into gear here. However, you're probably going to see me not be posting much on Facebook, because I think I can speak what I want to say through the microphone here. Better than I can articulate it on Facebook through a bunch of texts, right? So we're still going to keep the podcast up. It just might not be as frequent as we'd like, or as I would like, right? And so we are going to be bringing some guests on and things like that. But I just, I want you guys to keep an ear out for us and everything else. I'm going to try to go back to my original schedule of trying to get these things out every week. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to kill myself over it. There are a lot of people out there speaking about the things that you need to hear. And I'm not so prideful to even think that my commentary is going to change the way people think about things, is going to fix the world. I'm not so naive to think, like I've said numerous times, that what we're saying here even is going to change the world, right? I would rather not add to your noise in your podcast. If your podcast feed is anything like mine, there's a lot of noise in there, and I really do think that there comes a point where I have to admit that what is our goal here on this podcast, right? So there's a lot of things I really want to talk about, but there's a lot of things that if I talk about it, you're going to hear it from 9 different people. So I'm going to try to come up with some better ways, some better topics and things like that to push out here to you guys, so you guys can, get that. But remember, we're focused on the life of St. Joseph and everything else, right? So we want to look at the world through the lens of St. Joseph and how we're to handle that. So I'm going to try to move back into the normal realm of things here. But I my posts on Facebook and personal posts and things like that are probably going to be pretty minimal, just due to the fact that I've got a family to take care of. I got things to do, and me being on Facebook and arguing with people or doing anything like that's not helping my family. I'm not going to change the world that way. So I'll use the microphone instead. And we'll go on from there. So that's an update to the show. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm really happy to be affiliated with Covenant Eyes. That's awesome. So we got our first affiliation, so I'm super stoked about that. and hopefully you guys really get a lot out of the podcast tomorrow. Again, that's going to be 1 Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I have been thinking, and that's going to be a show on Covenant Night. So if you're just seeing this right now, if you're watching right now, you just joined us. We're affiliated with Covenant Eyes, and we got a really pretty decent show packed for tomorrow for the pornography thing. It's going to be great. And if you missed my talk a little bit about pornography at the beginning of this, go back to the beginning of this episode and listen to it, and you'll understand where I'm coming from. You also notice I'm not really dressed up in my suit and stuff because I'm just trying to get this update out there so that, you guys can hear my voice for a minute, which sounds like I'm losing it, but I'm really not. All right. The last thing I wanted to really talk about is the fight. There's a huge battle going on. And I know that I've spent a lot of time talking about, in the beginning of this podcast, silence and how we need to practice silence. We need to go into ourselves. We need to go not into ourselves. I'm sorry. We need to go inside of ourselves to find Christ. I want to get into the centering prayer crap here, right? I don't want to talk about that. But we really need to be spending time in silence because, I reiterate that a lot on this podcast, at least over the short shows that we've had, the short time that we've been on doing podcasts. We have to start practicing silence, which means we may have to step back from social media. We have to step back from the noise from the podcast and things like that. Why am I saying that? Because there's a fight, and we as Catholics need to figure out where our place is in this fight. There was a lot of news articles and stories I wanted to talk about last week. I wanted to get on here last week and do a podcast last week. But every single day, a new story popped up. I mean, it's absolutely incredible how fast this stuff is accelerating. It's like every time I pop or I have a chance to I almost said pop in a CD. Wow, goodness gracious. Every time I turn on a podcast, pop in an 8-track, every time I turn on a podcast, it's a new thing every day. This country is changing rapidly. Our faith is changing rapidly. And I don't want to sit here and discourage people because there's a lot of craziness going on, but there's a fight. There's a battle here. And you and I have to fight this. We have to find ways to fight this. But the only way for us to find a way to fight it is to find out what Christ wants us to do to fight it. Some of us are going to be very vocal about it, right? God gave us and me a chance to speak about some of these things. And like I said earlier, I have to remember what my mission was originally with this, and that was to bring you guys spiritually back to Christ through St. Joseph, and ultimately to bring myself, because when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to myself. This is how I process things. This is how I kind of like get stuff out of my head. I'd be grateful if one person listened to me. I'd be totally happy with that. If nobody did, it's fine with me too. This is my way to get stuff out and get stuff processed. However, if I just tackle the news every single day, everybody else is doing that. So instead, I want to focus more on what we can do and what we need to be doing, and to reiterate the silence part. We need to be spending time in silence. We need to be spending time with Christ, asking him, okay, what is it specifically you want me to do? Because I could sign every single LifeSite petition out there, okay? And if that's what God's telling me to do, sign those petitions. Get on LifeSite News, look at the petition page, and bam, you're going to find a ton of petitions up there to sign. Tons, right? There's some really good stuff going on in the world too right now with the whole anti-abortion laws that are being passed all over the country. That's fantastic. Get involved with that. Call your senators and everything else, right? But in order for us to act, senators and congressmen and all those people, in order for us to act, though, we have to know where our place is in this. And there's so many fights out there that everybody's like, well, what fight do I pick, right? What fight? Well, the first battle needs to start with yourself. If you're not living, a life of prayer, a life of Christ, a life with Christ, then you need to fight that battle first. And then once that battle's fought and you feel like you've got some semblance of a spiritual life, you've got mortal sin under control, then you can move on and fight more often. And trust me, I'm speaking to the choir here, as somebody who just got done talking about pornography and everything else, as somebody who's definitely struggled with that sin numerous times. I've got to check myself with that. I have to make sure that I'm clear and I'm seeing clearly, right? We can't see clearly. We can't see Christ. We can't even look at the world through the lens of Christ if it's completely clouded by sin. It's not going to work. So the first battle needs to be with yourself. Okay. The second battle, needs to be with your family. Let's get our families to heaven. Let's work on that, right? And maybe that means you just need to shut the world out for a year and a half, and work on your family. Be there with family. Work on your career. That's another one that you could work on, right? There's people inside of your jobs. The job I'm working right now, there's a lot of dudes here who've never heard the gospel of Christ. They've never understood what that meant. They've never had a Catholic explain these things. I got into a talk yesterday where I had to describe why, me going to a Protestant worship service doesn't work. Like, I can't do that. I can't necessarily go to I can listen to, there's certain things that I could go to where I would just be a spectator and try to figure out what they're talking about. But to go to an actual worship service and receive their communion is I can't do that. And they didn't understand why. And I sat there for 45 minutes to an hour, just taking them through everything, right? It was beautiful because at the end of it, they said, a Catholic's, I'm not tooting my own horn, by the way. They said, a Catholic has never described this stuff to us. I never would have known that if someone hadn't explained that to me, So that's another way we can fight. We can fight this battle. We need to educate people. We need to be charitable to God. We need to love God so much that we love our neighbors with his love, not ours, because our love is completely flawed. And if you want to talk about charity, go back to some of the other episodes I've had about charity. I think we've talked about it like a million times in this podcast, and I'll keep hitting it over the head. It's just like pornography lately. I've been on this like porn kick, right? I'm going to hit it over the head because that's a struggle that men struggle with predominantly, constantly. Right? Keep doing this in my hand. I wish I had like a gavel so I could just slam the table, right? My hat's all jacked up too. Oh well. And so these are the three fights right now. Yourself, your family, and get into your jobs and start educating people, start talking to people, start inviting people to ask questions about your faith. You don't even have to seek it very hard. It's going to pop up eventually just by your actions. If you're saying prayers at your lunchtime, right? And you're doing the sign of the cross and you're saying that, your prayer before meals, prayer after meals and things like that, they're going to notice, they're going to ask questions. And a lot of times it starts off with people making fun of people and then it goes serious as it goes on. Be charitable, roll with the punches. Don't let them, push you over or whatever, but definitely, take time to talk with people about Christ. People want to hear that. As much as the world tells us they don't, people are yearning for that truth. So those are the three things that we can do to fight. Some other things are just, like I said, I'll pop them back up on the screen here, but Patrick Coffin Media, right? He's been kicked off of YouTube and Facebook and everything else. And then Jesse Romero, Jesus 911, Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Go check those podcasts out. Give these guys support. Write them reviews, right? Keep their shows going. Patrick Coffin Media has a great Restoring the Culture that they were just doing. They have a website called Restoring the Culture as well, where you can join and become a member of that. Become a member of that. Help out Catholics who are trying to do something good. So those are my three suggestions to fight. Fight yourself. Get your family to heaven, and then start working on people outside of your family. Work on your and sometimes that requires all three together. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on myself. I'm working on my family. I'm working on the world around me. But we can't really do that until we have some kind of foundation to build that on. So, all right. So without yapping too much, tomorrow, again, we have Mr. Brandon Clark on. He's going to be talking with us about Covenantize and how that works. And I'm going to do another shameless plug right here for us. There it is right there. Go to www.covenantize for a 30-day free trial. And your promo code is LOTP, Light of the Patriarchs. LOTP, www.covenantize, 30 days free trial. And try it out. Look at Covenantize. See what it does for you. If you're struggling with pornography, it's time to break free. It's time to nip this in the bud. It's time to quit giving ourselves over to the devil, right? Satan wants us that bad that he's going to tempt us. And we need to shove it right back in his face. Right? We need to suffer for Christ and his glory and for his church and everything else. We need it right now. And if there's anything to fight right now, it's this battle right here. It's the battle with yourself and the battle with your own temptations. So awesome. I'm glad I did this today. I was exhausted. I went on a big bike ride, today, and tired, but I'm glad I got up here to do this. So that Brandon Clark will be on 1 p.m. Eastern, or 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll have time for discussion tomorrow as well. So if you want to write in with your questions, please write in with your questions. Other than that, it was very nice to chat again, to blab my mouth for 25, looks like going on 26 minutes now. Just been flapping my gums. So hopefully someone takes notice and we'll keep doing this as long as I can. And also, last but not least, I want to thank, there was an anonymous donor who donated some money to keep us going for another 2 months. So it's not coming out of my pocket for the next 2 months. It's awesome. Thank you so much. You know who you are. If you'd like to donate, I got rid of the Patreon account. I don't want to have to do that because I didn't want to have to promise people stuff I can't keep. And honestly, we're going to be simplified. I'm literally going to keep these to live streams, maybe some posts on the website, and the live stream YouTube video podcast thing, right? This is very easy for me to do. It's very coherent. I can do this very quickly. We can get it out the door. But this is probably what we're going to be doing, is just simplifying everything that we're doing and just keeping it at a minimum. So if you'd like to donate, you can. I've got a PayPal account set up through our website. If you go to our website and you click on the donate link, and we also have a link for Covenant Eyes there as well. So if you didn't catch that earlier, you can look at that. So other than that, I'm going to say the St. Joseph prayer, and then we're going to bounce out of here for today. So here we go. Nomine Patris, et Filii, Spiritus Sancti. Amen. O St. Joseph, whose protection is so great, so strong, so prompt before the throne of God, I place in you all my interests and desires. O St. Joseph, do assist me by your powerful intercession and obtain from me, from thy divine Son, all spiritual blessings through Jesus Christ our Lord, so that having engaged to below your heavenly power, I may offer my thanksgiving and homage to the most loving of fathers. O St. Joseph, I never weary contemplating thee and Jesus asleep in your arms. I dare not approach while he reposes near your heart. Press him in my name and kiss his fine head for me, and ask him to return the kiss when I draw my dying breath. St. Joseph, patron of departing souls, pray for us. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right. It was great talking with everybody. You guys have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Please write in with your comments, questions, or concerns for Brandon Clark, and hopefully we can get them answered tomorrow. Stay tuned. Tomorrow's going to be a great show. Take it easy, guys. Oh, boy. I got to work on that ending. All right. Take it easy, guys. It's still not working. This thing, I swear.